Now, those inflection points, I could probably do an hour with you just on how you maintain the culture, and I'm interested in that because it's so difficult when you start hiring a lot of people and really proactively establishing the culture. You want to talk about that just for a few seconds? What are you guys doing tactically? I really try to give my audience, those young CEOs and passionate CEOs, some tactics on how to do these things, because that's a big worry for young CEOs is that when I bring in capital, they're going to make me do things a certain way, and I really want to preserve the culture. What have you guys done tactically on the culture side?
Yeah, I think the first thing we did was we really sat down and in a very deliberate way wrote down what we call our company principles.
Mm-hmm.
And this sounds very kind of like textbook business
school. No, I get it, yeah.
Crap, but not that I've been to business school. I've talked at business schools, but we went through a process of writing down, and this is something you really have to do seriously and honestly, to write down the company you want to build, okay, which is about what your mission is as a service, the kind of company you want to be culturally, personally, the way you want to behave and treat each other and talk to the world and all those things, and actually be honest with yourself, and try to really distill the who you are and write it down, and then teach everybody in your company what those things mean. And it's a very time-consuming process. It took us many months to come to a conclusion. It was a team of 6 people on management teams that are doing this, and also getting feedback from the company. And then we have Pandora University now, and everybody in the company goes through a many-day orientation where they meet leaders from every dimension of the company, and Joe, the CEO, and myself walk everybody through these principles and talk them through. And I think music is probably an easier category to identify passion and mission and so on, but I think that you can do it for anything.
Right.
The mission may take a different shape than in a different category, but if you really do identify the things that matter to you and the things that you care about, and write them down, then it's like your anchor. You can, as you go through the years and you are buffeted by all these externalities and changing, sort of impacts on your business and pricing and competition and blah, 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 you can always refer back to these things that are sort of evergreen, that are a way to inform your decisions, a way to kind of stay grounded as things change around you, because they inevitably do.
Right.
So we put a lot of energy into that.
That is excellent. I mean, you're singing my tune in a big, big way. So, I mean, just being proactive on it is a great way to do it. And then the onboarding that you're doing and the ongoing training with Pandora University is really just fantastic.
I also think that, and I had this bias myself, I think a lot of people think of that stuff as sort of, that's stuff you learn in class, and it's not really the real world, and it's platitudinous, and, we don't really do that, do you? But it's quite the opposite. I mean, the reason these things have become common practice, as is true of so many, truisms of business, is because they're important and they work.
Totally agree. And, it's funny you mentioned Joe. Some of the best entrepreneurs that I've met who have scaled their passion, who've reached a certain level, talk a lot about hiring that complementary leader. And it sounds like you found a good person in Joe. Can you speak to that a little bit, how important that is, or in your mind, where it ranks in the level of importance in terms of the decisions you've made?
It's one of the top few for sure. I mean, I was really lucky to get him. And I interviewed a bunch of candidates, and nobody held a candle to him. And there were two things that really impressed me about him, although I think I say this now, I'm not sure if this was actually consciously at the time. I think I knew what I was doing, and even if I couldn't have articulated it then, there were two things that I really liked about him. One is he was razor sharp, very smart, grasped the business, the idea, just sort of what we were doing very quickly, and we had really sort of thoughtful, sophisticated conversations about it quickly. So a lot of confidence in that. And the second thing was he was very humble, and someone who you could tell would be a great leader in terms of getting the most out of people around him.
Mm-hmm.
He had already had kind of his day in the sun. He was one of the founding executives at Saturn, and had run E-Loan for a while. He has the brass ring, so he wasn't coming into this to make a mark. He was really you could see focused on ideas and wanting to build something meaningful, etc. But low on the ego meter, and that's turned out, I think, to be so vital because he's surrounded by resources at Pandora. We have an incredible team of executives and workers, and if he was somebody who worried about his ego all the time, we'd be a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I, like you said, we play very different roles in the company. I spent a lot of time evangelizing. I'm out in the public a lot. I'm kind of the voice and the ambassador for the company, and that's not a role he wants. And he's somebody who really loves to kind of churn through data, market research, build things, models, and kind of get in the weeds on things. And I don't want to do that.
Right.
But they're very complementary skill sets.
That's excellent. I mean, that point in your growth where you start to recognize you can't wear all the hats. When you're the founder, you're wearing every single hat. Was that a difficult transition for you? Or it sounds like you thought it out well and it's played out well. But when it was actually occurring, was it difficult to let the baby loose? To a large degree, to some new people, or?
It's funny that there's a Harvard Business School case study on the two of us about founder transition, because you're right that typically it's a fraught with problems. And I can see how it would be. As wonderful as this has been, I can see how easily it could go off the rails if we didn't have such complementary kind of skills, but also desires about what we want to do, roles we want to play. I do think that the fact that we occupy such different spaces in the company, and that neither of us wants the space occupied by the other, has made for just a really symbiotic relationship, which I think has really been important in driving the whole company culture. I think the company has a real sense of cohesion and respect among its two leaders, and that gives people a lot of faith.
Oh yeah, it trickles down in a big way. I mean, your energy and Joe's energy totally trickles down. So,
and we've had times in the company way preceding Joe where that wasn't always true, and it's deadly. You need to have a cohesive leadership team.
Totally agree, and I could talk to you about that whole dynamic because it's so real to me. I've worked with a couple of great entrepreneurs, and they're really good at what they do, and you want them doing that. But they've worn that hat for so long, where they had to pay the light bill and the tactical piece. So it's just interesting. There's a whole conversation there. Let me shift gears.